All right, well, I am on my way to work tonight. Work being school. I teach at a university, adjunct at night, teaching cybersecurity. But I wanted to just take a couple moments, I don't know. We'll see what it ends up being by the time I get rolling here. Just to kind of talk about a couple things, mainly that have just been kind of going on around, I guess, the streamer world or you know, the YouTube world. I don't know what to exactly call it, but mainly just kind of surrounding, you know, there's been a couple of specific videos that different creators have posted, really just looking kind of negatively on streamers in general, and Disney streamers have really gotten the target of that, and those that live stream from the parks. And there's been really a lot of kind of negative things said about those that you know, are streaming more full-time or semi-full-time from the park, that are doing it more for a living and doing it more for monetization. And I just wanted to, you know, make a quick video. This is, you know, 100% my opinions. I don't know anything, so this is just what's rambling off the top of my head. Feel free to completely and totally ignore me. But I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit, just my kind of thought process on it, because, you know, disclaimer that I have, if you guys look down in my description, I am part of the Disney Streamer Network, that is just a coalition of kind of streamers, and a partnership between them, just to try to kind of work to create better content, be able to network with each other, work with each other, for kind of the better of what's produced out there. So, you know, I'm a small fry. I don't stream regularly. I don't live in Orlando. I'm not one of those that, yeah, I don't even have monetization on my channel. So, there is no income from my perspective. There's no money. There's nothing that I get out of when I stream. I've always described it to most people, and the people on my stream, I describe it, you know, for me, it's the equivalent of, I'm the crazy guy in the 90s that liked to have a giant shoulder camcorder to be able to record all of my family memories and be able to kind of bring that home and have that as a permanent record. I think when I first started streaming, one of the things that was intriguing to me was that idea that, you know, you did have people that would watch, that would be connected. So it wasn't just you in the parks. And I think that's where, at least my thought process on a lot of these streamers that, you know, do this alone, they go to the parks alone, they spend their time alone at the parks, that's really what they're doing. They're connecting people to the parks, that aren't able to be there. So that's where, you know, I first kind of got into the streaming community, like a lot of people, during COVID, which was, you know, lockdown, nothing going on. And I remember watching some of the you know, bigger streamers, I'm using air quotes that you guys can't see, but the bigger streamers that were out there, Janelle, Goo, I think Ron on the Go might have been around then. Like, there were Dakota, there were certain people that were around that were kind of those, Resort TV 1, I guess, some of those what I would call mainstream kind of streamers that were out there, that were streaming from the parks. And kind of, for me during COVID, it was, you know, everything shut down, but there are these people that are out there still in the parks. So I was able to be there, and we actually, thanks to them, ended up going to the parks during COVID because we saw it was safe. We saw the crowds were low, and we went. But ever since then, you know, I'd keep it up occasionally on a secondary monitor somewhere. I'd kind of keep up, you know, whoever was popped up in my YouTube feed. There was no real following or loyalty that I had to anybody. And then kind of a year and a half ago, I kind of got more into it, and I was like, you know, I want to be able to see kind of what's going on at all times. I kind of got into that news, and I liked the vlogs that people put out, but I really enjoyed more the live streams because I was seeing what was happening right now in the parks. And being able to ride some of my favorite rides virtually was something that I enjoyed. So I got into it. That's where the multi-view was kind of born. It was very crude at the beginning, and I kind of went through a development cycle to kind of build it to what it is today. So if you don't know, I created the multi-view, DisneyStreams.com. where you can see, you know, a whole bunch of different streamers all at once on one screen, and you can chat and interact with them all at the same time. So it kind of is the cheat code of not having to switch back and forth between people. You can see everybody at one time. So I created that, and it was kind of through that process that I kind of got in touch with Lawrence at Park Bros. And kind of I was watching his podcast one night, and he was talking about this Disney streamer network. And I was like, you know, I've got this multi-view thing you might be interested in using. And so we kind of got together, and then, you know, the next trip I went down, I decided, you know, I'm going to live stream. I'll try to live stream some. So I did some live streaming, and I had some enjoyment out of that. It was a fun experience. And so that kind of is what got me into kind of the, I guess, community. And I enjoy the technology aspect behind it, because it's an amazing feat that can even be done. So that's kind of giving you a little bit about my background. Way too much, I know. We'll move on from there. But, you know, this has come up now a couple times. There's been recent videos. If you go down the Reddit rabbit hole, you'll find all sorts of posts that are nasty things said about people. I have mixed opinions to a certain extent, because I do see, you know, what some of these videos are talking about. I see, you know, quote unquote bad apples that are out there that have some bad experiences, or are notoriously doing bad things that I wouldn't approve of and that I wouldn't do myself, that are being, you know, detrimental to other people's experiences at Disney. So I think there's bad apples out there. I will agree with that there's definitely some that, you know, don't represent the majority. The frustration I have with that is as simple as that's where all these videos have focused. There's a lot of amazing streamers out there. There's a lot of folks that I watch, and I try to contribute to as much as I can through chat, through likes, through supporting them in any way I can, because what they're doing it the right way. They're being respectful of other people, and they're providing content to people that might not be able to get out of the house. People that are shut-ins, that don't have the option to go to the parks, don't have it via monetary, via physical limitations, via anything. They can go out and share their day with these people. And so there are people that are getting true enjoyment and hope out of what these people are producing. And so it's very hard for me when there's videos that are put out that are so blatantly negative, that are talking about, well, we just need to ban all live streamers, or we need to kick these people out of the park. And while I acknowledge there's some bad apples and there's some bad scenarios that go on, overall, it's still a positive thing. So I think that's where I struggle. Now, I'll step back and talk about the bad apples thing, because it's also really hard as a live streamer and someone that, you know, when you're on stream, you're spending 8 hours of your day, if not more, with people eagle eye watching every move and everything you say. I'm sure if you were to go back and look at my streams and put them under a microscope and look at everything that my wife and I said or we discussed on stream, I'm sure there would be things that we could get flack for, that people would criticize us over, say that was inappropriate, that wasn't right. I'm sure you could find that. But that's what real life is. And that's, you know, when you put people under a microscope, we're all short. We all fall short. We all do bad things. We all are imperfect people. And so I think it's a little bit harder to try to hold live streamers to a higher standard just because they're out there more. And, you know, I think it's also hard to me because people are critical of live streamers, and vloggers do the exact same thing. I think, you know, the vloggers, the only difference is they get to edit out all their bad experiences and their poor reactions. So if they get frustrated, they get mad, they just don't put it in the final edit. That's not a luxury you have as a live streamer. If you get frustrated and you're visibly frustrated on the stream, or you're annoyed at somebody or an interaction you had, or it's just been a bad day, you don't have that luxury to just take that away. It's there, and you know, you can delete the video later, but it happened. Somebody clipped it. It's there forevermore from that perspective. So I think it's really hard when I see people put the microscope under live streamers because it's so easy. And then I talk about bad apples. Let's be honest, the Disney parks are full of horrible people. People may take offense to that. People may be frustrated that I say that. And when I say horrible people, just people. It's not live streamers, it's not vloggers, it's not a specific, it's people that have come to the park that have unrealistic expectations on their day, or they don't care about other people in the park. I cannot count, over the last year we've had an annual pass. I cannot count the number of times that, I got so irritated and my magic was ruined, in the term that people love to use in Facebook groups. My magic was ruined because of someone, not a vlogger, not a live streamer, not just some inconsiderate person that, decided to do something, and half the time they didn't even realize that they were being that obnoxious. They completely and totally thought that behavior was acceptable within the parks because they were entitled to be able to act that way. And so there's bad apples everywhere. You're always going to have people that are going to do bad things, whether that's, the guy that's standing behind me in line that's spewing off expletives at someone else in line and almost gets in a fight because they're cursing at each other. That's magic ruined. Okay, that happens. That's bad people in the park. The people that, cut in front of you in line and bring 17 of their friends to the front of the line. The school groups that come in, and it's the cheer squad of 400 people that get in your way that just stand in the middle. There's always gonna be bad apples in any scenario you're on in life. It's just part of it. And the screaming child that's on the ride that's crying the entire time. I'm trying to enjoy my Pirates of the Caribbean ride and there's a baby screaming in my ear the entire time. Those are things that happen. And it's just part of the luck of the draw. But it's like, okay, a respectful live streamer that has his phone up, that's sitting on Pirates, showing his live stream community the ride. Okay, maybe he needs to be quiet, maybe he needs to dim his screen, that's fine. But how is that worse than the guy sitting right next to him that's recording it on his phone because he wants to never post? He'll post it on Facebook maybe, or he'll just save it and never post it. I mean, my mother-in-law, love her to death, but she takes all these photos, she never posts them. So I always think about, so here's the perfect example I have, people complain, oh, well, the live streamer, you're trying to watch fireworks, and imagine if you're standing behind them, you're only going to be able to see it through their phone. Well, at least that's being used for something. The other 2,000 people that are holding their phones in the air blocking my view, that are using it for personal use, that aren't sharing it with, 300 to 400, 500 people live online, those are frustrating to me. But at least I can give the live streamer a little bit of onus that at least he has people watching the stream that are enjoying that as he's recording it, versus the woman that, stood in front of me the last time I tried to watch Happily Ever After and literally had her phone up directly in my eyesight line to any fireworks or anything, and basically I was watching the show through her phone. There's always going to be that. And so I have a hard time with this criticality of individual people and individual scenarios without looking at the big picture. So I think that's been my biggest frustration with some of these critiques recently. It also is interesting to me that most of these critiques are coming from people that are Disney vloggers or Disney content creators that just aren't in that space. And so I'm always interested, I'm like, can you truly critique if you're in a very parallel space, but you're not in that space? And so I again, I won't call it a frustration because I understand it. And I understand where they're coming from. I have been watching live streams before, and something happens in the live stream with that creator, and it's an interaction that they have, and I cringe. And I go, oh, that just wasn't the right way to handle that. But then I look at it, I take a step back and I look, well, look, if somebody was streaming a camera the entire time when I was at Disney, I might have that same cringe moment. I make mistakes. I don't always handle things in the moment the best way. So that's just really my take, my blabbering of this. I don't think, you know, I don't realistically think Disney's going to ever take any action. I know this has been the big thing I see in the comments. It's always like, well, they need to ban live streamers, or they need a registration system, or they need... I mean, I do kind of wish they would at least approach some of what I would call, quote unquote, the bad actors, or those that are continually causing an issue. Not kick them out, not ban them, just approach them and just let them know, hey, you know, we had some complaints, or we've been watching some of your content, and, you know, we kind of wish you would be a little bit more respectful to others, or we don't want you to... we want you to be careful, essentially. Not kick them out, not maybe even a formal warning. I don't know if a formal warning would do anything, but just something to let them know, hey, you know, tone it down, calm down, whatever the scenario, just like they would if I was a guest in the park and I was making myself known as being boisterous and loud, or I was making disruption. They would come over and very, you know, kindly and nicely escort me somewhere to the side and say, hey, you know, if you want to continue to stay in the park, you need to chill. So really the same thing that they would do for any guest. I do kind of wish, you know, maybe they would get to that. I know one of the things that I've suggested a couple times, and I think, you know, it may come up pretty soon, that I'd like to see some live streamers do, is really commit to having more of a formal code of conduct that they abide by in the park. And I think, you know, 90% of the streamers that I watch would already be abiding by this code of conduct. They would already fit into what I have, but it's things like what have been discussed in these videos that, you know, are people self-promoting themselves to random people, people being loud, people talking on rides, not being respectful to other people's experiences. So I think for the most part, something like that is not, it's not going to fix anything, but it would help, I think, people understand that, you know, there are some self-imposed guidelines that streamers that are in the park are doing. And I do plan to, regardless of what anybody else does, I do plan to put mine in my description at some point and, you know, commit to, you know, if I'm in the Disney parks and I'm specifically streaming, this is the code of conduct that I'm going to do my best to adhere to. And I say do my best because, again, I already said, everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. So I think that, to me, is just kind of where I'm coming from. Again, right or wrong, I don't know. I've blabbered on, but it was kind of, as I was driving to class tonight, I figured, why not? I'll throw something up and post it. But appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Again, you know, I think a lot of these people that are posting these videos, they're doing this. I think a lot of them may just be doing it for clicks and views. I think some of it's probably clickbait, but let's be honest, anything we post online is intended to be clickbait. You don't post a video online without hoping you'll get a reaction to it. So I don't blame these folks for taking advantage of kind of the tidal wave of you know, bad streamers in the Disney parks and what should we do. So I understand it. I think, just honestly, I hope, from my perspective, I hope that, you know, some of these videos will start a discussion and will kind of create some additional engagement and understanding just between, you know, what seems like some of this vlog versus live stream community thought process. So I don't know, but again, I'm a small fry. Nobody cares what I say. Nobody should care what I say. You know, maybe if I had a following of 100,000 people or something crazy like that, no, people still shouldn't care about what I say. But again, thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys have a good rest of your evening, day, whatever it is when you watch this video. I will note, I am planning on being back at the Disney parks in a couple weeks, and I plan to be live streaming some. I don't know how much, but, you know, I'll live stream a little bit here and there, and we'll see how it goes. But thanks, guys. Take it easy.